Well, click, click, get ready for your Kodak moment.
Welcome to One on One, a Bluff City Media podcast. Listen in as we go one-on-one with coaches, players, and influencers from across the city of Memphis and around the country. Now, let's get to the show.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of One on One. I am your host, Christian Fowler, and this week I am joined by the host of the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, Jessica Benson herself. Jess, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We've worked in the same field, in the same industry, obviously, for like 5-6 years now, but we've never really sat down and like talked in depth. So I'm excited to do this. Let's start with something that I know a lot of people know about, but I feel like it'll be fun to talk about the story again. I know you've talked about it a lot. How's the leg doing?
Oh, the leg. She's doing a lot better. For people who don't know, I tore my Achilles in a Grizzlies employee 3-on-3 basketball tournament in late January. I wasn't doing anything particularly fun. I was running out to the 3-point line to check the ball, and next thing I knew, it was like textbook. You know, working in sports, you hear so many stories. Like, you've read the Kevin Durant story.
Right.
Oh, I heard a pop, and then I thought someone kicked me in the back of the leg, and both those things happened. So I kept trying to tell people I tore my Achilles. They're like, no. It's an ankle sprain. Sprain, you're gonna be fine. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I tore my Achilles. But it's been the most humbling lesson ever. It's been the worst, both physically, mentally. I was complete non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. I had a really conservative surgeon, and then I also just dealt with a lot of pain early on. I've learned the injury is so different for every single person who goes through it. But once I started physical therapy and relearning to walk again and be a semi-normal functioning human, my husband doesn't have to drive me everywhere anymore, which is great. But we're doing better. You're now in the point where they'll remind you constantly, like, it is a full year recovery. And so you kind of hit a plateau where you're doing better, but you're not yourself, which can be frustrating. But day by day, one day at a time, every cliche, throw it out.
So you knew immediately, like that,
Immediately.
just from hearing the stories of like you felt like you got kicked in the back of the leg, feel like your legs got taken out from under. Immediately, you're like, I freaking just tore my Achilles.
I also thought I was either going to pass out or puke.
Yeah.
And there are some people who get up, and like, not everyone's Kobe, but some people get up and walk around and don't know. I couldn't put an ounce of weight on it. I was like, I'm going to throw up. I'm in so much pain. Someone please bring me a trash can. Someone brought me a trash can that was full of puke. I was like, this is not the move. No. This is not it. But CJ Hurt and his wonderful wife, actually, it came back. His team had lost, let's be clear. My team was in the semifinals. So we were playing well. We were in our third game, and they did lose after I went out. I was not contributing. Offensively was not contributing. Big defensive presence there. But yeah, we went to the hospital. And funny enough, the hospital actually didn't tell me that I tore my Achilles. They were like, if you're still in pain in 7 days, check back with your primary care doctor.
No shot.
And I was like, no way. I had done a story on Rachel Heck, the golfer, who's at Stanford now. It's incredible. Her dad is an orthopedic. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure that I tore my Achilles. Can your dad see me at Campbell?
Yeah.
And we were able to work it out, and I was able to get in there the next morning, and it took him 10 seconds to tell me I ruptured my Achilles.
What is the thought process like? Because like I'm just thinking about like me personally and injuries that I've had, like same thing, playing pickup basketball. I thought I completely shredded my quad, and I was like, I really just did this playing basketball as a non-professional. I don't get paid to do this. Like, how does this happen? What was the thought process like when it was like, oh, I'm done. Like, I'm on the shelf for a while.
It was so frustrating because you know how long it is, and I'm super active. Like, I hadn't played basketball since pre-pandemic, but I ran 4 miles 4 times a week, like constantly working out every single day. And so I figured I'm active, I'm fit, I'm relatively young-ish. I guess once you hit 30, like, that's all relative at this point.
Jess.
Right. But suddenly you're facing a torn Achilles and you're like, oh, maybe not so much. And so you're just so frustrated with the thought of, oh, my life is about to take a drastic turn. And there were so many times early on where I was like, why couldn't it have been my knee? Like, I have bad knees. I always thought my knees would be the thing that betrayed me. And I would have taken a knee I don't want it now.
Yeah,
Knock on any
yeah,
material.
not anything now.
But they're very honest with you about what the road to recovery is like. And those first couple of weeks, like we're talking the kind of pain where I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't read, I couldn't focus. I would just stare at a wall and scream for hours upon the day. So once you get out of that, though,
It's okay.
anything's better than that.
Yeah.
And you start going further away from it, and you're like, did that really happen? Like, is this a fever dream? And it was.
Yeah, and like you said, you're super active, and if you follow you on any social medias, if you follow Jess on any social medias, like you're always doing something. You're
Yeah.
never just chilling, it seems like. And especially with work and everything, there was a minute where you were doing the show from home and stuff. How how stir crazy were you going just being stuck at the house?
It was very hard. And then even once I was able to, my wonderful husband would drive me to and from the show because, as you know, hosting a show, it's so much better to be in person, face to face. Like, I hate doing our show on Skype. And so I think I lasted a week doing that. And then I was like, I want to be back in studio. But when I was not at work, I was home constantly. My life became work, home, and my couch was my castle. And Chris bought me the Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy game. I hadn't played a story-based video game probably in a decade.
Yeah.
And that became my sanctuary because it gave you something to focus on. So
And
not
get
only
away.
and yeah, and like really get lost in a different world. And when I was reading, I would get distracted by the pain. And when I was watching TV, I'd get distracted. But Hogwarts Legacy, man, you get on that broom and you're flying.
So Hogwarts Legacy is what got you through.
Yes, absolutely.
The painful state of the Achilles injury. And also came at a bad time because you and Chris were just moving into a new home.
Yeah, that was less than preferable for him. We had we purchased our home or signed. I don't even know the proper terminology because that's how little I was prepared to buy a home. But we like signed 10 days before I tore my Achilles, and I think we moved in a week and a half post-surgery, and it was so hard because I couldn't do anything. People always joke like, "Oh, you got out easy. You didn't have to do anything."
I'm sure
but
you
I'm a
felt
total
terrible.
control freak, and I felt terrible because I'm watching him just like the blood, sweat, and tears going. And we only moved about 4 blocks away from our other downtown place, but it was so much energy and effort. And my dad came and helped. My mom came and helped. And so we ended up getting support along the way. But I hated not being able to participate in the move. And there are still things tucked away in places that I have no idea where they are. And maybe I'll find them eventually, but maybe not.
So let's talk about Chris a little bit. It was always hilarious to me, and I'm sure a lot of people that follow you, just the not married yet stuff. Yeah. How long were you guys together before you actually got married? Y'all got married last July. So how long were y'all together before y'all got married?
We got married very close to the 10-year anniversary of not dating, but being in one another's lives as it happens when you're young. But yeah, we met at the 2012 London Olympics as interns, and he was at Syracuse University and I was at University of Southern California, and both those schools had programs with NBC in the Olympics. And so we met there and had a little fun summer fling, and then life kept bringing us back into each other's worlds. USC and Syracuse played at MetLife Stadium for the first time, I think ever, maybe that fall. And Syracuse went to the Final Four in Atlanta that year. I was there with my family. And so it always felt a little destiny-like. But we did wait a significant amount of time. And I would like to give Chris the full pass. It was on me. It was completely my decision. I didn't know if I ever wanted to get married. And eventually I was like, all right, we'll get married, fine.
So that's what's funny about it. Like from the outside looking in, you would always think it's like, it's
God.
Chris, because the way that it was kind of framed is like still not married,
The
still not
poor
engaged.
guy, especially once we moved here. We're both like West Coast babies.
Yeah.
And so once we moved to Memphis, it became so much more weird, I guess, for people to see. Like, oh, what's the holdup?
Yeah.
What's taking him so long? And people would come to Chris and be like, oh, if you don't hurry up, you're going to lose her. And he's like, no, you don't understand.
It's her.
This is her problem. But we eventually did it. And now the biggest issue is I didn't take his last name. So people really can't grasp that.
Oh yeah,
Ever.
No, that definitely throws people, especially in the South. But where did like the not married yet stuff come from, or not engaged yet stuff? Like, was it a
really
joke?
when we moved here,
Okay.
because it was everybody
So
consistently
you were playing on like
asked.
everyone else.
Yes.
Obviously, like you said, it was kind of on you, but it
Yes.
was an inside joke between you two against everyone else, pretty
Yeah,
much.
so it started as a Still Not Engaged,
Yeah.
and that was our origin podcast. You can go find it wherever you find podcasts. I can't listen back to it because I have no idea what we said. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it was Still Not Engaged, and we would do these like fake proposals on social media regularly just to like freak people out.
Yeah.
And then I think people got sick of those, so we stopped doing those, and then he eventually actually proposed into this whole elaborate scavenger hunt around New York City. And then we changed the podcast to Still Not Married. And then the pandemic hit, and the person who had been doing our podcast ended up moving, and that was the end of our podcast.
That was it.
So we're just still not married forever, according to the podcast rules.
You live in lore like
Yeah.
that. So you guys had a kind of a long engagement too then, because before y'all got engaged before COVID.
We got engaged in May of 2019.
Okay.
And we had already wanted to take some time. We were going to plan a wedding. We knew we wanted to get married in Washington State. And so we kind of like pushed it forward, and we had decided on our venue like 2 weeks before everything shut down.
Yeah.
So like early March 2020. And then we worked in the news, and so we were kind of like inundated by everything and the instability of it all and how long is this going to last. And so we just preemptively called our venue and we're like, hey, can we actually shift another year forward to 2023 as opposed to 2022 as opposed to 2021? And so we were just gave ourselves all the time in the world. And then we ended up losing that venue. So it kind of worked out. We had to shift and pivot to
Again.
another one because
Yeah.
they changed their stuff in the midst, and planning a wedding.
Yeah.
10
no,
out of 10.
I'm not there yet. That stuff would stress me out way too bad. But it sounds like Chris is the hopeless romantic, not you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he was the one who wanted the big wedding. Like we could have eloped.
It wasn't you?
No. But it's so funny because I really thought like, it's just a wedding. Like
Yeah.
I won't change my mind even after we have it. Now, anybody who's considering eloping, I've become the person who puts the pressure on, and I'm like, no.
Go big.
I would never take it. I wish we could redo our wedding 100 times. It was the best day
Yeah.
of our lives. It was so much fun. We put so much emphasis on a party and each other. And that was all that mattered. Like, is there a great DJ? Is there alcohol? Is it a cool space?
Yeah.
Great. That's all we needed.
And I love that. I didn't expect to get into marriage talk because obviously I'm not married. But just like the way that I've always thought about it is like modern day stuff is so crazy with like how big people go. And that's fine. It's fine.
Right.
I get it. I understand people want to be extra, and it's all about social
Right.
media and status and all that stuff. But like at the end of the day, it's about two people, and that's
Yes.
it. So I love the fact that you're like, as long as it was as we were happy and we had the party that we wanted with our friends and family, that's it.
And it was still like stupid expensive, but we feel like we saved on so many things. Our welcome party that's the thing. You can't just have a wedding.
No.
You have to have a welcome party and a rehearsal
Yeah.
dinner. And we're like, let's just get pizza and a keg. And so we did pizza and a keg, and it was great. And
Yeah.
wine from Costco.
It doesn't have to be big.
That's what you try.
You had a good time.
And I had a great time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I do love that because my sister and my two best friends have gotten married within the last year, and I was in all three of those weddings, and it was just like, this feels so refreshing from stuff that I've been to because it's scaled down. And the coolest thing about what we got to do is they had a house out in Como, like this in Como, Mississippi. It's like
Not Lake Como.
no, not Lake Como. No, not anything fancy. It's like 45 minutes south of Olive Branch. But the venue, it's called Hitching Post Manor. The venue has an 8,000 square foot house on site.
Oh.
So we all got to stay at the house. Like the whole wedding party got to stay at the house Friday night and Saturday night.
Perfect.
And so it's like, okay, it's all of our closest friends, all of our families here. Like we just get to hang out, relax, chill, and then like spend this whole weekend together making it about them. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
It's too overblown. It's too nuts. It's too crazy nowadays. I think people just need to pull back a little bit.
Just have fun.
Yeah.
Like it's not that serious.
No.
It's really not. And we always look back. I was just in a wedding recently, and it was just the reminder of how all of the anxieties over the little things, they don't matter.
No.
Once you get to right before the wedding, like guess what? It's gonna work or it's not. It was the hottest day of the year. We got married at Chambers Bay Golf Course in Tacoma, Washington. Hottest day of the year. Normal temperatures, like mid 70s, beautiful. For ours, the heat index was like 102. Death. We showed up the day before for our rehearsal and found out that the air conditioning unit wasn't working. So we're like scrambling, trying to do whatever we can. it was fine. Everyone sweated their booties off, but we were all in it together. A shuttle didn't show up for some of our guests at a hotel. People carpooled, figured it out.
It all works.
We got married, and it was great.
It all works out.
And it was perfect.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about kind of your journey to where we're at right now. You talked about going to USC and stuff like that. If you could walk us through the progression.
Starting at USC.
Yeah, let's okay. We can break it down a little bit.
Okay.
So let's start at USC and kind of when you realize this is what I want to do. I want to do something in media and in sports.
So I'll take it one step back because it was important in me getting to USC. But I always had this like split personality between sports Jesse and musical theater performing arts version of me. And at high school, I was all into sports, and then I was a part of this performing arts group outside of school, and it was kind of like my secret High School Musical life. And so the summer going into my senior year of high school, I went to the Yale School of Drama for a summer, and I loved it, but it taught me I cannot be in a world where sports is not a priority because no one cared.
Right, yeah.
I was like, does anyone want to go to a Yankees game? And everyone's like, no, not really. I was like, oh my God, come on. So that was a good lesson. And I also like learned the life of a struggling actor and didn't want to be sleeping with 10 people in a small studio in New York City. So instead I chose the next most practical profession, which is sports journalism, which is super easy and so well paying early on. But USC was so perfect because they had just started this sports media studies minor to go along with their broadcast journalism major. So from the jump, that was my path of study, and I never really strayed from it. I ended up minoring in popular music as well. Thought that maybe I would like keep doing a little musical theater stuff on the side, but ultimately pushed that aside and dove into the Lane Kiffin years at USC and was able to have some experience there covering the team and traveling to cover the team a little bit too, which was really fun. But I went through a phase where I thought maybe I don't want to do sports. I want to do news and be a very serious news person. Yeah. And I was the executive producer of our student station. And I think I just did it to prove a point looking back on it. Like, I can do this. I don't have to pigeon myself into sports. But everything always funneled back into this is sports. This is such a big part, has been a part of my life from infancy, from the womb.
Right.
And that's how I ended up on that trajectory.
So you talked about it being, in your life from the womb. Explain that a little bit. I'm sure most people know, but just where did that love of sports come from and how was it introduced to you so early?
So I was born in Toledo, Ohio, when my dad was the commissioner of the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. And when I was a toddler, we moved to Denver when he became the commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference. And so the WAC was like my extended family growing up. Some people had aunts and uncles, and I had Boise State and Hawaii and June Jones. But that was on that side. And then my mom's dad was also a football coach. So he coached at the University of Puget Sound, and he was an assistant kind of bopping around and ended up being a scout for the Buffalo Bills. So I had it really on both sides. And it was just everything. Like every vacation we took centered around sporting events, a game, meetings, whatever it may be. And so it was really hard to escape something that's that ingrained in your soul.
Yeah. And okay, so you kind of talked about having like the split personality and then the point at college where you're like, I want to be super newsy. Is that because you did feel like, okay, this is like what everyone wants me to do. It's been in my life for so long. So was that temptation to kind of separate from it and be like, I'm going to go do my own thing? Yeah.
I always joke that like my rebel period was theater, which is like, wow, what a lame rebellion. But it was kind of this offshoot of, I'll never forget when I decided to stop playing basketball and I was going to join the dance team. I was going to be a pom. And my dad was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm going to be a pom. Super supportive and couldn't support more. But what a pivot, right? Like to go from, and I played every sport imaginable growing up, from basketball, soccer, volleyball. I had a period where I wanted to be an ice hockey player. I wanted to be an inline skate hockey player. I golfed in high school, but I wanted to be a dancer in that moment. And so that's what I was. So that was my big, like, I'm going to go against the family name
this is
here.
my switch.
And look at me now.
Back in it.
Back in it.
So many people that are in sports media or just into sports in general, like they don't have parents or family members that were so ingrained in sports. Like for me, when people ask me, it's like, oh, I've just loved sports my whole life. Like that's how me and my dad bonded. Like we always watched sports together and stuff. But having having family members in such high level positions, obviously with your dad being the commissioner of 2 conferences in that span. And then, like you said, with your grandfather, your mom, you said
My
your mom's dad
was a scout.
so your grandfather being a scout for the Buffalo Bills. What was it like having such high level sports people around you? Obviously you don't have the opposite experience, but how did that kind of shape it?
It, for one, made sports always a business.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I struggle sometimes to understand like true fandom. The closest I achieved to it was going to USC, and you get sucked into the undergrad experience. But when we went to games, we weren't in jerseys, we weren't in team colors, we were neutral.
Right.
So talk about being like capital J journalists. Oftentimes I would get stashed in a press box because it was an easy place to put me and just sit at this table, don't make any noise, and go from there. So the business part of it always kind of like shaped my viewpoint. And I also knew, our family was dependent on the WAC being a successful entity at points, and for those teams to win. And so you have a different level of fandom because you're cheering for them, but it's not just one team. You're cheering for the conference in its totality. Right. And then, I had to learn, I wouldn't say the hard way, but in a weird way, growing up, it felt like all of the pieces within the NCAA especially were like my extended family. Like commissioners and athletic directors and presidents were like my aunt and uncles, like them and their wives or their spouses, and you'd see them once or twice a year at various events. And I was like, oh, those are my family and their kids, and growing up alongside them. And then, you kind of go off to college and everyone goes their separate ways, and you're like, oh, it's business.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, work and family are very, very separate things. But that line was always blurred a little bit. And there are still people to this day who have very, very special places in my heart within the sports business. But for the most part, there's a separation there, which was an interesting thing to kind of navigate.
Yeah, so going from USC to kind of transitioning from being in school to being a professional in the field, what was first straight out of college?
I went to the Tri-Cities, Washington, which is about 3.5 hours east of Seattle. And so I went the local news path out of broadcast school, which was what most of my classmates did, because the thought was if you wanted to be on air, take a job in a small market, go make negative $5 in a place where you don't know a soul, and go and do it. And I got really lucky because Chris was a year older than me, and he was also a broadcast journalism major at Syracuse. He was a news reporter, and he was working in Yakima, Washington. And Yakima, Washington was a bureau station to the station in the Tri-Cities. There ended up being a completely random surprise opening in the sports department in the summer after graduation. And so I was able to apply for that, and I was able to get that job, which was great because it put us in at least semi-close vicinity. We were about an hour and a half away from each other. But that was my first job, was the weekend sports anchor at KNDU and SWX, which was its own like little regional sports network from Spokane and the Tri-Cities. And they added a couple Montana stations along the way. And a lot of high school sports made me fall in love with that prep life.
Yeah.
And the Western Hockey League, the Tri-City Americans. We had an arena football team, the Tri-City Fever, RIP. Sad.
That sounds about as small town journalism as it gets.
It was.
So were you straight to Memphis from there, or were there other stops?
Yep. Straight to Memphis from the Tri-Cities. And so that was in 2016. And you start evaluating, okay, where do I want my second market spot to be? And Memphis was on our medium list, I think. And I just wanted someplace that had a lot of passion for college sports, and my familiarity with the Tigers came from watching them in the Final Four that we don't talk about, and just understanding that like there was a really passionate fan base here, especially for Tigers basketball and history, and then the up and coming nature of Tigers football into this period that it was in. And then I wanted an NBA team. I wanted a professional sports team, and so the Memphis Grizzlies fulfilled that piece.
So I'm assuming the plan probably wasn't to stick around here very
No,
long.
we were supposed to be here for 2 years. We've been here 6.
So how did you guys both kind of get jobs at the same time? Obviously, you're applying in the same places and trying to get stuff. Was there any kind of cool story behind it happening at the same time, or was it just like, okay, we got lucky and here we go?
Yeah, luck, but also coolness. And Chris was always so good about like, I'm going to follow you. It's way harder to get a job in sports than to be a dude in news reporting. There are way less of those. And so he was able to kind of navigate that. But he moved down here without a job. He had reached out to all the stations ahead of time, and he had 2 interviews like within a week of us getting in town, and he had a job within 2 weeks. And that was that. And then we were both able to manipulate our schedules for the most part to be off. I think we were off Tuesdays and Wednesdays were our weekends together, because that's the other thing. You move to these cities and local news is so hard because you're not making a ton of money. You're moving someplace, multiple places where you don't know a soul. And I'm always so grateful that I had a partner to go through it with, because it's just such a challenging hurdle to get over in meeting people. And then, if you're in sports, you're generally starting as a weekend sports anchor.
Right.
And so you're working every single weekend, you're working every single holiday. And it's really hard to find time to go out and make connections, period.
So before getting to Grind City Media, what was the progression like? Was it the same thing throughout, or how did kind of your job and function change throughout that time?
Yeah, it was. I consistently was the weekend sports anchor at Local 24, and that was the bulk of my career. But then the big thing that kind of threw a massive curveball. Well, two things. One, upon the completion of my first contract, Penny Hardaway was hired, and I did not want FOMO. Like, because of my history with March Madness, and talked about my dad being a commissioner. He was on the basketball committee during my most formative years, and I was able to be a ball kid for the Final Four for 3 years, and like that just meant so much to me. And my lifelong dream was to cover a team going to a Final Four, and I was so excited for Penny Hardaway and the #1 recruiting class, and I was like, I cannot leave in this moment and risk not having it play out. Obviously, it plays out the way that it does. But
so was there another offer on the table or something? Like, were you guys about to transition out?
We were really like in the throes of looking for that next step. And I had turned down a couple because they just didn't fit the right spot. But without that, like, I don't know if I'm still here today, because it's just, that's how it works. We loved Memphis and we felt at home here, but the whole climbing the ladder. It's very progressive in that, or very specific in like, you move to this market,
and then
go
you
to
go
this
here,
market, you
go
move to another market, you maybe change into a sports director role, and then you take a step back. But ultimately, like, it's pretty clear how you're supposed to continue onward. And then I ended up doing some fill-in work for 92.9 ESPN. I had never done sports radio, and I had never even had like talk show host in my peripherals. Like that was just never a part of the plan. But I really enjoyed it, and I was really appreciative of the opportunity. And then that kind of spiraled into, okay, could there be a potential down the line with Grind City Media? I also started winding into a space where I just wasn't sure if the local news life was right for me forever. And like mental health wise, it was just so much stress all the time. You're working so hard as like a one-woman band.
Yeah.
What people don't often realize is you're shooting all your own stuff. You're writing, you're editing, you're producing, you're everywhere. You're doing everything. And even in Memphis, you know, you're still at the high schools 2 or 3 times a week, and then you're turning around and you're at the Tigers games, and then you're at the Grizzlies games, and there's random things sprinkled throughout. And it's a lot. It's a grind. And both Chris and I have left local news for that reason. And it's a struggle. I respect the hell out of people who continue to find ways to make it work.
And then what was it like to get that call for Grind City Media? Because like you said, you're ready to kind of transition out between, because were you full? Did you have a full-time show at 92.9?
No, I was just filling.
You were just filling. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So
I was filling, and then I was doing like some weekly spots here and there. Right.
But so during that time, because like you said, as you get into that, you're kind of seeing like, okay, this transition out needs to happen, and how's it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? So what was it like, and what was the timing like to get kind of the Grind City Media opportunity?
It was weird because it was 2020, and then the pandemic came, and there had been like a sprinkle of conversation, and I honestly wasn't sure that it would still be on the table, because suddenly sports were gone.
Yeah.
Like I think we all have just collectively tried to black out that period in life, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, certainly they're not going to cancel the NCAA tournament, and oh, there goes the NCAA tournament, and oh, there goes the NBA season, and everything just kind of rolled through. And I remember talking to my agent and being like, you know, do I need to start evaluating outside of the industry? Like, what do I need to do within my local news job? I had been switched to a COVID-focused morning show, which morning show-wise got me prepped for those early alarms, but it was just like the antithesis. I never wanted to do news after that small stint at USC where serious news person, wear a blazer. But that wasn't what I wanted. So now not only were you in like a schedule that wasn't exactly what you wanted, you're doing content that you didn't necessarily ever imagine doing. And so she had conversations with the Grizzlies, and ultimately they're like, no, like we would like to still continue to move forward with this concept of a morning show, and Grind City Media, as they tried to expand what they were going to be as a content entity. And I feel so fortunate that it continued to move through. So I think I ended up starting in the early summer of 2020, which is such a weird, volatile time to start a new job.
Right. And then so fast forward 3 years later, and right around a month ago, right? You get the show to the Jessica Benson show with CJ Hurt. What's that 3-year progression been like, from uncertainty, obviously, to starting the morning show with Megan, and then here we are now 3 years later, and now you have your own name in the show, and it's kind of been a really cool progression to watch from afar.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like the strangest thing. I don't think that part of it has hit with the rebranding and the relaunch, but I feel so grateful for the early years with Megan and Megan Triple, who now is crushing it with the Brooklyn Nets. But we were put in such a uniquely challenging position, starting a show in the middle of COVID, as two people who we really didn't know each other. Like, we'd been around each other generally, but we didn't know. And, hosting a show is all about getting to know the other person and chemistry and trying to develop that over Zoom and learning about each other. We would just have these long Zoom sessions trying to get to know each other and little things that would help add to the show. And
not having sports as a fallback, really.
Exactly. And just trying to be like, what is this going to look like? And, it was so cool. And it was such an honor to be in a space where we were two women in a space that just frankly doesn't have a lot of women in it. So not only was it one, it was two of us, and to be able to have the trust from the Grizzlies and what they were looking for in the two of us was really cool. But there was definitely times where I was like, I can't believe we're doing this. Like, this is just insane. Do a morning show, all this content, year in, year out. It's a grind in itself, but it's a lot of fun. And the thing that I loved about our show that has now carried into what CJ and I are able to do is it's not just sports, it's pop culture, TV, movies, random stories, just like stupid things you see on the internet from day to day. And I think there's such a fun freeness in that, of not having to be sports all the time. And that makes it a more entertaining show in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. That's like what we're trying to do here, is just be like, we can talk about things. We are people. Like, I know we're not looked at like athletes or anything, where they're not people to the common person, but even us is like, oh, you can only talk about sports. And it's
I promise there's so many more things.
There's so many layers to me as a person, and it's not just sports. Like, I'm sure you get it all the time too. People come up to you and they just want to talk sports, and it's just like, hey, I talk about that all the time. Let's talk about something else. Like, I have other hobbies. There are other things that I like outside of sports.
Yes,
too.
It's been very fun for me because the majority of my closest girlfriends do not care about sports at all. And they really, like, in the nicest of ways, don't care about what I do.
Right.
And don't understand exactly what I do, and they're supportive and they'll cheer it on. But when I'm with them, we talk about anything but sports. Like, they just don't even remotely follow. I have a couple girlfriends who are like really big into USC football, and so we're able to sit in that place. But it's nice to have a separation between industry life and having friends in the industry who of course want to talk about sports whenever and wherever you can. And in my relationship, Chris is a huge sports fan, so we do dedicate a lot of our time to sports throughout the year. And once the fall starts and it's football Saturday and it's football Sunday and it's the Grizzlies whenever they play, and he's a Warriors fan, so it's the Warriors whenever they play. But to have that like separation with some of my friends, to be able to remember there is an entire life where people don't care, which is wild.
Something you mentioned was, with you and Megan's show, like being women in sports, and there's not many women in sports. And I feel like there are some women in media who kind of shy away from talking about that because they're just like, no, I just want to be serious. I want to be taken seriously. And I mean, I don't understand that because I'm not a woman, but I get it from the outside perspective. But something that I've seen you do is just mentoring and helping and offering your advice in any way that you can. And I feel like that's the least that any of us can do. But what is that like for you, being someone that people look up to, and young women specifically come to you for advice, and I'm sure give you plenty of compliments on your show and what you do. So what is that like for you?
I always want to be able to help younger women because, and this is all on me, I didn't have a lot of mentors in the business because I was always too nervous to reach out to people. Even to this day, I kid you not, I have a draft of an email to a woman in the industry who I admire greatly. I cannot press the trigger button on the send.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird mental block. I don't want to inconvenience anyone. I don't want to ask for help. And so I want to make it easy for younger people. So if I meet someone, I'm like, please, here's my number, here's my email. I'm serious.
Don't hesitate.
Call me,
Yeah.
reach out, and we'll set up a time where you can come shadow, or if you have questions, I'm happy to take your call. And so I really do try anytime somebody reaches out to say yes, because I don't want someone to sit there thinking, oh, she doesn't really
She doesn't
mean
really
it.
wanna
I'm like,
help.
no, like if you're listening to this, I really do, because I just want to make it easier on the next person. That's, I think, the greatest gift that we can give in a very tricky industry, and an especially tricky industry for women. And so if we continue to make it just like a smidgen easier for the next
Right.
generation, then they'll make it a little bit easier for the generation after them. And that would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things that draws people to you outside of just your talent, obviously, and what you do is just how relatable you are and like the realness that you have. And like I was previously mentioned about some women in sports, they do want to be so buttoned up and professional because they want to be taken seriously. But you show your whole personality, like not only on the show, but on social media, just like, yes, I do this and I do this,
Yeah.
and all the avenues that you're in and stuff. So where is that like a freedom that you've always had being in sports, or was there kind of a shift to where you just said, screw it, it's all me all the time?
It's definitely been an even bigger shift recently. It's funny because when I was in the Tri-Cities, Washington, and this is where, despite my reservations about ever recommending the local news life for anyone, or specifically the local sports journey, being in the Tri-Cities, I could do anything because the stakes were so low.
Yeah.
So I started getting really creative with my highlights and with my anchor packages and with even my storytelling and features. And there was just this really nice freedom of, okay, if you mess up or if someone hates this, who's really seeing this? And as we
Right.
grow in like the social media era, that's a little less true. And it's not like I was 100 years old. Like social media was there, but Twitter has just taken off into a different universe. And then when I moved here, you know, you come into a new environment, so you're a little reserved, and then you start finding your footing again, and you find the places that you're comfortable. And then again, even the transition to Grind City Media, it was scary because I wanted to be taken seriously. I was like, oh, shoot, here we are, two women giving our opinions on sports, and there are already going to be 100 people lined up against you who are like, why on earth would I ever listen to this? But now I've recognized, who cares about those people?
Yeah.
Like nobody is coming to me because I am the smartest person, and I'm very smart. I'm not downplaying my intelligence, but they're coming to me because I'm me, and they're coming to us because CJ's him, and the relationship that we have on the show, and the chemistry and the fun that we have. People just want to laugh and be entertained and learn something along the way too. But you realize that the biggest currency you have is your own personality.
100%.
So if you are diminishing that in any way, the only thing you're doing is hurting yourself by not kind of gifting all of you to your audience.
Yeah, because even at 24, like you showed your personality. There was
Right.
no doubt, like you knew when you were on, like you were
Yeah.
going to get to see something different. It wasn't going to be perfectly buttoned up. Yes, you're professional as heck, no doubt about
Yeah.
that. But like you could throw your personality in there and weave it in kind of a way where people almost could miss it.
Yeah,
You know
I think
what I'm
one
saying?
time I did an entire Lil Nas X Old Town Road sportscast where I snuck as many lyrics. Like, why? I don't know. Because I was bored on a
Right.
Saturday
Right.
and just wanted to make something interesting. But yes, that was definitely always like a part of who I wanted to be on air.
And now at Grind City, because like you're saying, it's not just sports, it's not local news. There is such a different freedom, like in this new age, modern digital media landscape of journalism.
Yeah.
To where it's like, I think we've realized, and you can give me your opinion on this as well, but like I think we've realized that, like you just said, people don't come to shows and people don't listen to podcasts for this is what happened, this is how it happened, this is how many points were scored. Like, no one cares about that. They're there because they've kind of endeared themselves to you and the personality that you have. And I think, to me, that's the coolest like culture shift I've seen in media since I've been in, is like, we don't care how professional you
Right.
are. We don't care how buttoned up it is. We don't, honestly, sometimes people really don't even care how well you know the stats
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like, can you give me somewhat of the information and can you entertain me? Like, can you take our short attention spans and keep them on you for 45
Yes.
minutes to an hour?
Can you do it in a new and clever way that I'm not
Right.
getting from the other 6,000,005 podcasts that
Yeah,
exist
exactly.
within the world? Like, we are so drowning in content. And so you just have to try to cast your line and be like, this is what makes us a little bit different. I will say the only it's not a problem with it, but one of the challenges is everything becomes about the show. Like my whole life feels like a collection agency for, oh, am I going to talk about this on the show? And luckily I have a husband who's like very chill with me telling whatever stories I need to pursue a point. But between like attending a wedding, I'm like, oh, how am I going to talk about this on the show? Or going to a movie, I'm like, do I need to take a note out? I saw Air in theaters, and I was like, oh, I really want to talk in depth about this. There's a woman singing all the songs next to me. I don't want to forget it. Like, do I need to take a note? So sometimes you become so wrapped up in everything's for the show. I'm trying to strike the balance where I still enjoy things, just purely enjoy them along the way too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because that's exactly how my brain works. Is it's like, I almost liken it to like being a stand-up comedian, because you hear that's what they do, right? Like they talk about their lives. And
my note section in my phone is ridiculous.
Because you do have to share life experiences, like in a weird way. For all these people that watch and we don't know them, like we do have to kind of be vulnerable and open up our personal lives. It's a weird balance nowadays in modern media between like, how much do I share? I don't want to overshare. Like I need to also live in the moment when I'm in my normal life, between like, what can I bring to the show? So I'm with you on that. It is a strange balancing act that I don't think people saw coming in this industry.
I'm trying to do TikToks. I just don't have the tenacity that I once had when it comes to social media. Because the older I get, it's weird. The older I get, the more resistant I am to using social media as I once did. And it's weird because I put so much effort into Twitter and I didn't put as much effort in Instagram. And now I feel like I'm playing this catch-up game, which this sounds so dumb. So I am well aware of how insane it sounds. But now I'm trying to do like the TikTok thing and the Instagram thing, and I'll go to an event and I'm like, how can I make this a TikTok? Like I just turned my best friend's wedding into a TikTok that I'm really proud of, but I'm pretty sure she's going to hate me when she sees it, because she's going to be like, this is what you were doing the whole time?
Yeah, you weren't just hanging out with us.
You were making content? Like why? So it's definitely one of those things that always sits in the back of your head. But I was really proud, I guess, when Chris and I went on our honeymoon. We really tried to completely shut off, and wow, what a beautiful thing that was. We were off Twitter, we were off social. Our rule was the only time I didn't want to post to Instagram at all. And the only time we could post to Instagram was if we were on a train going someplace else. And other than that,
off of it. That's how I am when I'm on vacation. And even when I first started in media, I was like, because I was never a big phone person, social media person. So as soon as I got in, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm on my phone 100 times more than I've ever been. And so when I go on vacation, I'm like, everything off. I'm turning everything off. I'm hiding Twitter from the home screen. I'm hiding everything from the home screen. I'm just unplugging. I'm going to enjoy my friends, my family, whoever I'm with. Yeah. And I am not a journalist. I am not in the media.
But then
for
you
this
get
week.
Behind.
Yeah, you do. And I'm the
and
same way.
And then you have to play catch up.
I'm the same way. I panic the whole time. I'm like, what's going to happen that I'm not going to be talking about? Or I say I unplug. Me and Kenny always record when I'm on vacation. But that's usually all I do. Like, usually I just record a show when I'm on vacation. And I'm like, okay, now I'm done. Like, I get on my phone for 45 minutes. Okay, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. Record a show. Okay, I'm done. I'm back to being present.
I'm with you. I've tried to honor my vacation time, like in the past, because we can do the show via Skype.
Right.
I would always be like, all right, I'll do the show on Skype and then I'll be into my day. And I recently had a trip where I was like, no, just take the 2 days. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Know what? They're going to come back on Monday. You're going to be back on Monday, and it's going to continue onward.
The world will
And that
continue.
is exactly what happened. But I do struggle with when you are on that trip and Monday does roll around and you're getting back on Sunday late evening and trying to play catch up
like
from the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just give up.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta.
I'm just going to talk about my trip. Like, we'll do it the next day.
That's all we're talking about. Yeah, I'll catch up on the actual news after that. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up. So I just want to thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, head over to bluffcitymedia.co. Check out everything we got going over there. Check out the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt every morning. It is live on YouTube and then archived as well, so you can check it out on Grind City Media's YouTube. Subscribe there, like, comment, blow Jessica's socials up. But Jess, I really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us and spending time with us.
Thank you. This was so much fun. We hope to do it again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of One on One. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube page. We will see you back here next time.